All right, good morning, everybody. This is Jenny Davis. I'm the principal of Piedmont Hills. This is Zoom with the principal. Our topic today is the importance of sleep. We have a small group today. Maybe everybody else is catching up in their sleep, so that's okay. So to get started today, I have a couple of videos I want to show you guys that are real short. I have some tips, but I'm hoping that we can have more of a conversation about sleep and what we're seeing with our kids and ourselves, because I know for myself, especially as I get older, I am realizing that sleep is really, really important, and that I just feel a lot better if I get a good night's sleep. I think that was stuff that I knew when I was younger, but I didn't place as high of a priority on sleep when I was younger. And I'm thinking that's probably true for most of us. So I want to start with a question for all of you, and you can raise your hand. You can put your answer in the chat, whatever you want to do. My question for you as an adult right now in your life, how much sleep do you get on average each night? If you want to go ahead and put a number in the chat, that would work. Rupert, what about you? How much sleep do you get each night on average?
It's funny that we were doing this one today. So my son is on, it looks like he's going on the sun, not by the clock. So I got less than 6 hours last night. He went to sleep about 6:30 because that's when the sun starts to set. And about 4 o'clock this morning, off and on, he was just wanting to be awake every hour on the hour. So I get pretty much, if I'm looking in the chat, about the same. Less than
Yeah, so
6. I'll be
I'm
lucky to get 5.
I'm seeing a lot of 5, 6 hours, 7 hours, one person 8 hours, which is amazing. I only get 8 hours sleep on the weekends. I would say for myself, I shoot for 7. But some nights it's definitely 5, and then those are rough days when it's 5. I'm not gonna lie. How much now? So that's on average. How much sleep did you get last night? Do you guys, anybody have like a sleep tracker that you know exactly how much sleep you got last night? Now, last night was Halloween, so maybe I don't know what Halloween looked like in your house. Maybe you were busy. Amy, 6.5, 5 hours, 5.5. So poor Rupert. Rupert's gonna be tired today for 5 hours. Okay. So
I'm looking
yeah.
at myself on the Zoom, and I don't look like I'm awake. Looking at myself awake.
Yeah, for myself, I got about 6.5 hours last night, which was pretty good. Though the funny thing about sleep is you can look and see and like, okay, that's a decent night's sleep. I still feel super tired today. And it's only Wednesday. I feel like this has been a long week. I don't know about you guys, but this just feels like a weird long week. Like last night, I was convinced that last night was Wednesday night, and then I kept having to remind myself that no, it's still just Tuesday. Good, Amy. I'm glad it's not just me. I'm like, why is this week so? Maybe it's because with Halloween and it's the end of the month and we're starting a new month. I don't know. It's just this week feels just like it's long. Okay, so do you guys know how, yeah, right, the holidays are coming up, which is actually, I'm glad you mentioned the holidays. I purposely, and I like looked back and I did this topic around this time last year too. I think this is a good topic to do at this time of year, just to remind ourselves to put a priority on sleep, because with the holidays coming up, we as parents get super, super busy and we put stuff off, and, we just got more things to do, and the sleep that gets like, even though I talk about this every year and I know how important this is, like, this is something that we just like, oh no, I'll catch up later. And it, has an impact on us. So and I'm going to talk about like everything with moderation in a little bit, but like, I just want to keep this in the forefront of our mind to remember that needs to be a priority. Okay, so my next question for you guys is, how much sleep do you think your teenager gets? So how much sleep do you think your teenager gets every night? I think for my son, I think he's getting 8 to 8.5 hours, maybe 9. But then I know there's nights where he is staying up way later than I think he is, because I've gone to bed and then I find out in the next morning, because I'm trying to get him up and he's in a coma, that he stayed up way later. Right. So 9.5, 8, 9. Okay. Um, I want you guys to do a little digging and investigative work, because my thought and guess is that some of you, your teenagers are getting less. So yeah. So we're going to talk about it. So let's talk about, I'm going to show you guys a quick video. Let me share my screen. And then hold on, let me get all this stuff out of the way. This is the Zoom thing. Here it is. Okay. This is a 2019 video. So let me, okay. It's real quick about why sleep is important for teenagers.
7 out of 10 teenagers are sleep deprived. I say, yeah, when I'm tired, I'm moody, I'm cranky, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. Good sleep will get rid of a lot of that. The instant benefits are that you feel better about yourself, you feel happier, you get on better with your parents, you learn better. If they don't have a good sleep and they try and learn something in the classroom, bits of their brain will be asleep. Teenagers need 9.5 hours of sleep on average, and that figure stays static until the end of school. One of the big factors is screens, and we know that blue light from screens delays body clocks. So our body clock is our internal mechanism that governs when we sleep and when we're awake. One of the big things that parents can do is evening time management. In that 45 minutes, the golden 45 minutes leading up to lights out, a bit of a routine, no screens, no homework, no exercise, nothing that will wake them up. The biggest message I give to parents of teenagers is sleep is treatable, it's changeable, so get in early.
Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. All right. So what I like about that little video, first off, I like that, well, it starts off talking about the 70% of teenagers are sleep deprived. And I know as a parent, like I just said, I can be so guilty of this. And I want to blame my husband because I go to bed first. I get up, I'm the first one to get up in the morning. I get up very, very early. So I go to bed very early. Like last night, lights out 8 o'clock, like 8:30, I was asleep. So I really depend on my husband to, get my son into bed and make sure that, he's doing this. And both of them are terrible at this. My husband has a terrible nighttime, like his own sleep habits are not very good. And so like, I want to put that right out there and admit to you guys that a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is not happening in my house, and it needs to be. And that's something that I need to like do better about, in making sure that this is happening, because it's not. The Davis Lanzoff household is a mess. So I just want to say that. So teenagers need 9.5 hours of sleep. That's a lot of sleep. And so really like backtracking of like, what time do they need to get up so that you don't lose your mind in the morning, and that the mornings aren't like a nightmare of you screaming at your kid and get up and we have to go to school and get your backpack, all that stuff. I know how mornings are. They're a nightmare. So think about, okay, what time does your kid need to get up in the morning, and then backtrack 9.5 hours about what time they have to go to bed. And another thing I really like about this little short video is it talks about the golden 45 minutes. So if you decide that your child needs to be asleep by 9:30, that means by 8:45, that's when the bedtime routine needs to start. And doing things like they need to not be doing homework anymore. They need to be not working out anymore. They're doing something that's quiet in their room. Hopefully they're not on their screen. One thing that and Annette put it in the chat, need to take away the phone. And also Esther says, no phones or electronics in his room. That is a really, if you can convince your teenager to do that, that you take away their electronics and you put them away and so that they don't have them, that is like, that's really key, because they will stay up on their phone, scrolling TikTok, doing, whatever they're doing, and looking at videos and different things on their phone or their iPad, or, it doesn't have to be a phone. It can be any electronic device. But that will definitely keep them up. I know for myself, I don't know how you guys have found yourself being guilty of this, where you're sitting there and you're scrolling through your phone and you're looking at things on social media and just, different stuff that will pop up on your phone, and you can sit there and like 45 minutes went by so fast, and you're like, oh my gosh, like now I'm up too late. Now like everything's thrown off. So trying to keep that bedroom routine is really important. I have some tips for a bedroom routine. Hold on, let me find them. Here it is. So this tip says make the last 30 minutes before bedtime a regular wind down routine. The video said 45 minutes. I think anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes is like perfect. Like just like knowing like, okay, I want to go to bed at 10 o'clock. So I need to start like 9:15, 9:30. I really need to start winding down. So what does winding down mean? It can include getting in your, whatever you're going to sleep in, getting your pajamas or whatever, your night clothes. I wash my face before bed. Reading is a great thing to do before bed. This says if you read before bed, read a boring book, not an action-packed thriller. I'm rolling my eyes a little bit that I'm just going to read what I'm going to read. I read for enjoyment. And so that's something that I like to do before I go to bed. Read something that I like. I'm not going to purposely read something boring. It's my enjoyment. So I think reading anything is okay. And I read on a Kindle, so that is an electronic device, but the light on a Kindle is different. So I think that doesn't bother me. It might bother some people. So if people, if you or your child is sensitive to light, that might be something to consider, that actually reading an actual book as opposed to on a Kindle. And a lot of this stuff, I want to say in these tips are trial and error, like pick and choose what works for you. Share this with your child, what works for them, and what works for somebody is not going to work for somebody else. This tip I thought was interesting. Keep the order and timing of the activities about the same each night. So if you wash your face first and then read, or one thing that I like to do, especially as I've gotten into my later 40s and I find myself like getting very like stiff and my joints don't work as well as they used to, I do a 10-minute stretch before bed. I have found that just like physically. So those of us that are in middle age, I do highly recommend doing that. The 5-10 minutes of like just the gentle stretching. It's not anything like totally strenuous. It's just gentle stretching. But I definitely have found that has made a big difference the next morning when I get up and those aches and pains. So I do recommend that. But keeping the order and timing of the activities about the same. So if you like I said, like I wash my face and then I'll do my stretch. And then hopefully I like to do like a 10-minute sleep meditation to really get me kind of like in that drowsy state. And then I'll read my book. But honestly, if I do all of that, I read for maybe 10 minutes and I'm like falling asleep and it's lights out. Dim the lights, especially this is important for your teenagers. Adolescents are more sensitive to light, and bright light decreases their melatonin. Melatonin, of course, is the chemical that helps them fall asleep. So if they are in their room just have a bright overhead light, it might be I'm going to mute all of you guys because there's background noise. There might be that bright light might be keeping them awake. So it might be worth investing in like, a small bedside lamp that's got a dim light that they can have on, in that last 30 minutes before they go to sleep rather than the bright lights. So that might be something worth trying. This suggestion is no technology 1 hour before bed. Avoid watching TV, being on the computer, being on the phone. This talks about avoid having TVs in the bedroom. I don't know how many people, I have a TV in my bedroom, but that doesn't seem like something amongst teenagers that was a big deal. I know when I was growing up, I graduated from high school in 1992, and like those were like the rich kids. They had a TV in their bedroom, like wow, like that was like blew my mind. That doesn't really seem to be a thing anymore, because they can watch stuff on their laptops, they can watch things on their phone, they can watch things on their iPads. So, that the TV is not as much of it. That's kind of old advice, but keeping them, getting them to get their electronics off an hour before bedtime might be a stretch. So maybe you can get them in, get them to agree 30 minutes before bedtime. But depending on your kid, you may have to take it. With my son, we have to take his iPad. He will stay up on it, even though he says he's going to go to bed and he may genuinely think that he's going to go to sleep. We have to take the iPad. That's just something that we have to do. This is avoid multitasking. I mean, we should be teaching our kids to try to avoid multitasking all the time, but it significantly raises the level of cortisol when they multitask, which is a stress response hormone, and that's going to keep them awake. So if they're like trying to like do multiple things right before bed, that's actually going to like keep them awake. Avoid stimulating active play before bedtime. And I'm saying this, and I just got an email from the soccer coach about when soccer practice is going to be over. And they're going to do soccer practice from 7:30 to 9:30 at night, because that's what seems to work. And I was like, okay, that's great. But I'm also thinking about, oh my gosh, those kids in sleep. So hopefully, if your child is on the boys soccer team and they have soccer practice late, make sure they're getting their homework done beforehand, because if their practice doesn't start until 7:30, then make sure that they're getting that homework done before practice, so that they don't have anything that they have to do after practice. Make sure, one thing that's nice about practice starting at 7:30 is they can eat dinner beforehand. So hopefully they get home and then they do have that 45 minutes. Like I would say, as soon as they get home, they're really starting that wind down time as soon as they get home. And so that way, hopefully they're asleep by 10:30. And then that could, hopefully work out. A lot of, like, again, my point, a lot of these suggestions is really working at what's going to work for you, what's going to work for your lifestyle, and your commitments and what you have going on in your life. This suggestions don't study until you drop. So if your child has a test tomorrow, make sure they're going to bed. I think teenagers and definitely, I know I did this when I was in college. One time I pulled an all-nighter, and I did awful I was right before it was finals. I had finals the next day, and I pulled an all-nighter, and I did terrible because I was exhausted. That's the worst thing you can do. So, teach your kids that, like, hey, you studied and study up to a point, but then getting a good night's sleep is actually more beneficial to them and it will make their brain work better than staying up all night studying. If you or your child's having a hard time falling asleep in that wind down time, and it's hard to wind down, a nice Warm bath that's quiet and soothing can help. This says a bedtime back rub. Maybe you can get your spouse to give you a back rub and that will help relax you. Slow, soft music helps some people drift off. This suggests instrumental as opposed to vocal music seems to be more helpful, but it can, again, it depends what works. My daughter, when she was little, she was like 3, 4, I had this Enya CD that used to soothe her and she would just like fall right to sleep. So that may work for some people. And then this final tip is try to go to sleep and get up around the same time each day. If you vary the time of waking or sleeping more than 2 hours, you induce jet lag, which I think is kind of interesting because I don't know about you guys. I definitely on the weekends do not get up as early as I do during the week. But I know with my teenager, he will sleep on the weekends. Like he sleeps till like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And most teenagers do when they're teenagers, so they're trying to catch up on their sleep because they do need more sleep. But if you can get them in a good sleep routine where they're hopefully during the week getting an adequate amount of sleep, that on the weekends, they shouldn't have to do that quite as much because they actually will just throw off their whole, because what happens is they sleep so much on the weekends and then Sunday night, they aren't sleepy. And so they stay up late. And so it just kind of starts this cycle. Taking it, I love taking advantages of the school breaks to like reset sleep clocks. And then one thing that this says, and it is super important, it's hard to do because I know you get sleepy, but avoid taking long naps. A short nap is probably fine, and a short nap is like 20, maybe 30 minutes. That's fine, but long naps during the daytime that are like 2 hours. So if your kid's coming home and they're sleeping for like 2 hours when they get home, they're actually just like blowing up their sleep clock, and they're not it's not actually helpful to them. So getting them out of the habit of doing that. I'm assuming you guys as parents aren't taking 2-hour naps during the day, because how would you ever have the time? That who has time for that? But yeah, naps can be detrimental. Okay. So all of those tips, some of those tips, I just wrote my article for The Legend, our school newspaper. I just wrote it yesterday. And I wrote it on this topic, the importance of sleep. I included a lot of those tips in that article. So you can, when that comes out, take a look at that. I left some of them out. I didn't feel like it was appropriate to tell our teenagers to get a back rub from a significant other to fall asleep. That seemed weird. So I left that one out. Oh, this is a nice, interesting idea. Spiritual development books to read before sleeping. Nice. Like I mentioned before, I like to do like some meditation before sleep and just quiet the mind. That is a good thing I have found to do. Okay, so this next video, I wanted to show you guys another video. This next video is more geared towards us as adults. So let me pull it up. Share my screen again.
For about $1 a day, this new company will ship you compostable zipper bags and give you free trash bags for
there we go.
Urgency. Do a quick internet search for sleep and you'll find a slew of articles about how to make your sleep perfect. New gadgets, fancy alarm clocks, stay away from blue light. There are lots of services, products, and advice columns that tell us we're sleeping wrong. Not enough, not quality sleep, wrong position. Even worse, you might find scary messaging claiming that if you're not sleeping right, your life is going to be shorter. You're going to get all kinds of diseases. One of the biggest worries we have about our sleep is that we're not getting enough. and that anything less than 7 hours a night means that we're doomed to bad health. Everything from high blood pressure to Alzheimer's disease. But there are two flaws with this kind of messaging. The first flaw is that it's not completely accurate. 7 to 8 hours of sleep, while recommended for adults, is just an average. And while messages have to be simplified for health communication to the public, sometimes important nuances get lost. So yes, it's true that not getting enough sleep in the long term is associated with health problems like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and depression. But fixating solely on 7 to 8 hours ignores the fact that there's a range of sleep that people need. The duration of a good night's sleep can be different for different people. Some adults need 8, but some are just fine on 6. The second flaw with this kind of doomsday messaging is that it can be counterproductive, especially for people who do have trouble sleeping. For instance, in 2019, it was estimated that 21% of adults in the US were wearing sleep tracking devices, and that number is probably growing. And I get it. It's fascinating to see how much sleep you've gotten each night and to know what part of your night was spent in deep sleep or dreaming. But having all of that sleep data is causing some people to become obsessed with it. So much so that it's leading to a condition some call orthosomnia, a preoccupation with the constant need to achieve perfect sleep. And this condition, ironically, is causing more sleep problems. Now, orthosomnia might be an extreme example, but the anxiety of not getting enough sleep is keeping some of us up at night. So here's what some experts are saying. Stop fixating on the number, because that can lead to unrealistic expectations of sleep. According to Dr. Colleen Carney, a psychologist and the head of the Ryerson University Sleep Lab, the basic questions you should ask yourself are, do I feel reasonably well rested during the day? Do I generally sleep through the night without disturbances? Or if I wake, do I fall back asleep easily? Can I stay awake through the day without involuntarily falling asleep? If your answers are yes to all three, you probably don't need to worry about your sleep. And if you're struggling with your sleep, instead of buying expensive blue light filters or fancy sleep trackers, try talking with your doctor to make sure there aren't any medical conditions that need to be explored first. Then try evidence-based recommendations laid out by the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. What's really cool is that there's a highly effective therapy called cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, or CBTI. It doesn't have any medications involved, and it has a really low failure rate.
Okay. I really liked that video. Stop sharing. Because I felt like it was like, okay, because there's been a lot of talk in like the past several years about the importance of sleep. And I, for one, am a proponent of it. And like, we really need to focus on our sleep.
Switch to Google
I'm
Fi
sorry.
Wireless and get
Okay.
Simply Unlimited,
Kidding.
our most
Stop,
affordable
stop,
unlimited.
stop. Sorry. And so, like I was saying, like, this is something that I think is really important. You know, and anytime that when you talk about your teenagers and struggles that they may have, like one thing that we are always going to ask as a school, like Miss Gunter as our social worker is going to ask, how much sleep are you getting? Because that oftentimes is a key cause for a lot of issues that our teenagers face. Anxiety, depression, which is our topic for next week. A lack of sleep can definitely lead, you know, to a lot of these other conditions that we worry about with our teenagers. So it is really important. But at the same time, I think it's something that we as a society can get a little bit obsessed with like, oh, getting the perfect amount of sleep. And I know, like, when I saw that last video, I was like, ooh, guilty. You know, that is definitely something like I do have a tracker on that tracks my sleep, you know, that I like look at. I don't look at it. I've like become less obsessive about it. But one thing that was good that it did cause me to do is like really think about what is my bedtime routine and what works for me. And like, how do I wind down and how do I do this before going to sleep so that I do fall asleep and I do have a restful night's sleep. So it did really help me like figure that out. But I don't freak out if I don't do that every night. One thing that I really like, have you guys ever heard of the 80-20 rule? The 80-20 rule means that when it's something that's good for you, like eating healthy, getting enough sleep, exercise, you do it 80% of the time. And then 20% of the time, you just kind of do what you want and what you feel like. And I think that that's a good rule of thumb, and things to teach our kids, like, hey, everything in moderation. So, in my article that I wrote for the students about the importance of sleep, I talk about the 80-20 rule. Like, okay, some nights you've got a big test, you've got a project you have to finish, or you're talking to your friends, or Taylor Swift is about to drop a new album and you have to stay up for that. There are things that you're going to stay up for and you're not always going to get a perfect night's sleep. That's okay. But if 80% of the time you are getting a solid night's sleep, then you're good. Like, that's golden. Like, that is really like what we should strive for. And so I think that I just kind of want to like wrap up on that message of like, let's not freak out if we're not always getting a perfect night's sleep, but striving to do it most of the time. And that's kind of the, like, most of the time we do this, but not always. And it's okay if it's not always. I don't know if anybody has thoughts on that or something they want to share. About that. I know, like, this is some of the things that, like, last year I also wrote an article about the importance of sleep. And I think I was a lot more like, this is what you have to do, you guys, teenagers need to get more sleep. And the feedback I got was like, Miss Davis just doesn't understand our lives. And I get it. It's been a long time since I've been a teenager. And when I was a teenager, things were really different. I didn't have devices. Like, we didn't have devices. Like, cell phones were like literal car phones that were like hooked up into a car, that only rich people had those. Like, most people didn't have those. So yeah, things were different. But I think teaching our kids that, like, hey, it's still important to get sleep, and that it's really important for your health, and it's really important for your own like well-being, not just like your emotional well-being and your mental health, but your physical well-being also. But it's okay if we don't always get it. I don't know, any comments? I've run out of things to say, so
I'll add something, Jenny. I wanted to add that with the devices, it seems now we're pulling our kids away from conversations they're having, but they're not. We don't know they're physically having a conversation because we can't see it. But more than likely, they're like, we're pulling them away for their friends, and that's what I get when I'm. It's not that when I'm trying to, like, okay, it's time to go to bed, but there's another kid on the ear, or there's 2 or 3 on Discord, and it's like, oh, you have to go to bed, or your dad makes you do this or do that, and then you seem uncool, and then you kind of back off a little bit, and then but we don't know on the other end what's going on the parent trying to get their kid off the devices as well. But I've learned that I'm pulling them out of conversations, and like, it's, I don't know, something I wouldn't do if they were in person.
I totally, you know what, Rupert, I appreciate you saying that, because I think that's something that we forget a lot of times as parents, is like, oh, we think they're just playing a game, but that is actually probably their social time. I know when I was a teenager, yeah, I'd like literally be on the phone with my friends talking. And so that's what I think, like, having and like kind of doing some like backwards mapping as a parent and figuring this out. Like, you want your child to be asleep at 10 o'clock. Like, if that's what that's what's going to work. And that time could change. It depends on your house, and it depends on your kid, and it depends on like what's going on. But like, set like, this is like the time I actually want them to go to sleep. And then like, okay, but they really need to wind down for 30 minutes beforehand. So if 10 is the bedtime, 9:30 they need to start the wind down, but they're on that device with their with their friends. So I don't want to start telling them at 9:30. I probably need to start telling them to it's time to end it at 9 o'clock and give them that little bit of a grace period of like finishing up those conversations, finishing up that game, and like finishing that up. So it's not just abrupt end and you're the bad dad because you don't understand their life. But like giving them like, hey, this is your 30-minute warning, and like that, and kind of come back at, you got 10 more minutes, that sort of thing. You may find that works. Not always. Sometimes there's going to be, something, there's going to be like where they just can't do it because I don't know, there's some major thing going on, who knows, but maybe that's when that 20% comes in. Like if 80% of the time they're able to do it, then you can like give them that 20%. The agreement of devices and electronics is we have to follow schedule or no more device or electronic. He's accepted it with a grain of salt. His friends know his schedule and know our knowledge, and to our knowledge, stop the comments. So yeah, I think that this is like what I love about doing these parent talks is that we're a community. And so if we all as parents agree like, hey, no, we're all going to have this agreement, then all of their friends are going to be kind of in the same boat. And they're like, yeah, no, my parents like maybe like turn off my electronics at this time. And so maybe that is something that could work. We literally have a signed contract. I love it. Hey, I am dropping a link to a Google form in the chat. I put this on the newsletter this past week. Those of you that are returning parents to us know that I have, like, for the past 3 years, we've done in the month of February a book club where we all read a book together. I have 2 books that I randomly bought, and they're both really good. And so I don't know which one you guys would prefer. One is called The Emotional Lives of Teenagers, Raising Connected, Capable, and Compassionate Adolescents. And the other one is Raising Independent, Self-Confident Kids, 9 Essential Skills to Teach Your Child or Your Teen. They're both good. They're both roughly about the same length. But I'm hoping that you guys that are kind of like my, that you might, vote and see which one you like. If it's tied, then I'll break the tie. But I like to kind of get the book out before we leave for Christmas break. Oh no, it says you need permission. No wonder I didn't have anybody fill it out. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna figure that out, and then I will, when I send out, it's too much pressure to do it while you guys are all staring at me. So I will figure out the permission thing, and then I will link it when I send out the video this afternoon. Okay, sorry about that. I thought I had figured out the permission, but I will get that figured out. Okay. If you guys, thank you. I'm glad that you guys found this helpful today, or hopefully you found this helpful today. Thank you so much. And next week, Miss Gunter and Miss Cruz are going to be with us. And so next week's going to be a heavy topic. We're going to be talking about depression and suicide. It is a really heavy topic, so I'm just warning you, but it's also a really important topic. My own child, my daughter, suffered from depression. She did, I've been honest with this past, she did at one point attempt suicide. It's a difficult topic for me, obviously, but it is really important because I definitely missed some signs. And so I want you guys to learn what the signs are and things to look for and what to do. So hopefully you join next week. Like I said, it's not going to be a fun, lighthearted topic. It's a heavy topic, but it's a really, really important one. So that's what we're doing next week. And thank you guys for joining. I really appreciate your time. I hope you have a good rest of your week. It's finally November, and it's that time of year where it's super cold in the morning and then 75 degrees in the afternoon. So enjoy yourself. Okay. Thank you guys.